Let's take some deep breaths. And as we breathe in, imagine that we're all breathing in the same breath. And to do that, wherever you're sitting, standing, or lying, feel yourself superimposed over, for those of us here today, on August 8th, 2023, feel us all superimposed over each other as you breathe. That we're all in each other. And beneath that recognition, there's all of our relatives. All of your relatives, all of my relatives, all of our ancestors. And in that, there's the whole world, every single human on the planet who's ever been on the planet, breathing this breath with us. And imagine, as we have set the intention to bring world peace one person at a time, and we're going to start with ourselves, that every single human on the planet is setting that intention. We don't have to know what's in their minds and their hearts. We don't have to know what's truly going on in their own conflicts within themselves. We're going to project our self-love onto them, because we can love people, and if they do not love themselves, they won't receive our love, and vice versa. So we will command that only the most divine light shine down upon you at this time, and that the greatest good be present here. This image that we're building in your body is something we want to begin to cement inside your perceptions. And that is this idea of oneness as one breath. That every breath you take, you are breathing in every breath that every human who's ever lived on the planet has taken. And there is only one breath. You can only have one breath at a time. And you can only have an inhale and then an exhale. So there is a sequence to breath. And depending upon where you start, out, and then in, and then out, and then in. And this is a very basic binary code that sits at the root of the source. This breath in and this breath out, and the heart that beats, blood in, blood out. And this breath is going to solidify within you. The more that you can spend your time in, when you're in meditation, when you're doing your breath work, to envision within you every breath that has ever been taken. And then using this imagination, this magical, mystical power that you have of compassion with a capital C, the fifth fundamental force of the universe, helping you breathe in, inspiring you to breathe out. You are compassion. And what you're doing right now, all of the humans on the planet, whether they know it or not, or are aware of it or not, they are all aligning to compassion. Everyone is being challenged to align to compassion. And what that looks like is starting at the emotion, deep within the first step out of the source into that gravitational wave that is you, that emotion is solidifying. That emotion is the primordial soup of what is going to be in the physical world. And all of your relationships are predicated and reflecting this relationship you have to yourself and to these three human dimensions. So as you breathe in, whether you're doing a meditation purposefully, whether you've been triggered and you're being forced to breathe, whether you're consciously stopping in the day to take some breaths, that emotion is every part of you. It exists in every cell, in every organ, in every thought. That emotion with a capital E is the expression of your individual piece of compassion. That is your birthright. And this is all about training your human mind that is already in the lens in your physical body to be in relationship with emotion, to be in relationship then with intuition, and to be in relationship with intellect. And aligning means that you are consciously and intentionally using that breath to pull that emotion up that wave. And you're using your conscious mind to be cognizant of what the voice of intuition, which is going to rise from that emotion, is going to tell you. And we want to reiterate that at these times right now, it is more important than ever to follow what the emotion tells you without question. If you need to sit with it for a while so that your body is screamingly sure of what emotion is telling you, that's okay. If emotion keeps hounding you to do a particular step, the next step, and you have to wait because you're just not sure, that's okay. But to say no, you're absolutely not going to do that, that's not okay. That is not in alignment to compassion. And that is you saying no to God. And things never go well when you say no to God. Oh, you can prop stuff up for a while, but ultimately in your heart of hearts, in your deepest soul, you're still unaligned. And we all need to be aligned to compassion in order to make this quantum leap, in order to make this evolutionary step that's going on. Now, we see this is going to catch on like wildfire. And when we say that, we don't mean you're going to be seeing it on the covers of People magazine. But what's going to happen is in your immediate worlds, because you're committed to the peace, and you are so committed to not projecting, to not getting sucked into the us versus them, that you're going to find new ways to express yourself and express these thoughts and these needs. And as you find those new ways, remember, you don't have to go right to world peace. You're going to the very small baby steps that first and foremost you're making with yourself, but then in your intention to bring world peace, you're doing it one step at a time, and you're doing it very thoughtfully so that you don't have to rush off and convince people to do things that they're not ready to do. And remember that what you're dealing with when you deal with people who aren't ready to go inside themselves and own everything inside, you're dealing with a very fearful system. It's so afraid of allowing the perspective to be revolved back around to self, to what is inside, to finding what is inside, that it it will resist it, and no matter how logical or loving or how much sense it makes, because it's a whole different threat. And they don't know they're threatened. They think they're threatened by that thing outside themselves. But they don't know that they're being threatened by their own inconsistency, by their own hypocrisy, by their own lack of self-love. And it's frightening because it feels like if they don't have the external to focus on, then they have nothing. Or how are they going to resolve the inner conflicts of their hypocrisy? There's an approach to that is different than how you might be used to facilitating change, where you go straight at the situation and you try to figure out an outcome in the arena where it's happening. You try to convince people to do this or that. The approach is when you have your alignment to compassion, when you have your operating system in place that's going to allow you every single day to be the witness to yourself, to take care of your emotion, listen for your intuition, always be aware of that intellect, keeping that in the right, good direction of listening for intuition and then using free will to do that, make that decision, what intuition tells you. You're going to be able to go into those conflicted arenas as a neutral party. And when we say neutral party, we mean that when you align to compassion, as we've said, when intuition is guiding the ship and intellect is being the faithful servant to the intellect, then you're aligned to compassion. And as we've said before, one thing this fifth fundamental force of the universe does is take your compilation of consciousness, that's you, the particle of you, and align it to true north on a compass. And it's aligned to true north on a compass so that you're all on the same map. You all have the same latitude and longitude understanding. You all have time-space understanding. You're all on the same map. But that alignment to compassion is literally 0 degrees of separation from the source. So that means you are the source. That means you are also revelating in the truth of compassion that every single particle is fused with the knowledge that you're all one, that you're one together. And when you go into a war zone or a conflicted situation, whether it's a group or just somebody else, as you were describing, Gilly, about people who just think you have to fight, and if you don't stop fighting, then something bad is going to happen because you're not there to resist, to prop it up. So you can go into a situation like that in a neutral position, and basically what you're doing then is you're waiting for your intuition to tell you what's the next most advantageous step, or what's the next most advantageous words to say. You are so clear and so aligned to compassion, and that intellect has been so transformed from all those lies and those voices of culture and the diminishing, the underestimating, the driving against what intuition tells you. You have cleared that up so much that your intellect is like the open sky, not like a huge thunderstorm. From that position, you are in present moment. You are 0 degrees of separation from compassion. You are intending to be the change. You are committed to the truth and to your mission. And miracles can then be had because you will be guided to say exactly what needs to be said in that moment to whomever. And even if those words don't facilitate an immediate change where someone stops and goes, "Oh, I see the light, let me come to your side," you have planted the seeds of truth. And the seeds of truth cannot be denied. And even the people that you see who are the worst offenders of war, racketeering, greed, destruction, even the worst human beings who are acting in such a way, the truth still resonates within. It's something that drives them to have to cover it up more and more and more. And in your own conversations about looking inside and having to resolve those conflicts first, having to see those needs and take care of those needs first, you then are able to speak truth. And the truth are seeds that are planted. And some people, they don't want to see the truth, but maybe because they have a relationship with you and they see you being so clear and so on target, so intentional, so compassionate, and they feel that truth within them and it rings within the truth within you. Now that's going to start breaking down that intellectual craziness that has them subsumed little bit by little bit. Now, those who are deeper and greedier and far more enveloped in the us versus them and the external acquisition of money, lands, and resources and things, they might pile on. They might buy more things. They might try to start bigger wars. They might try to carry on. But when that truth within them is actualized by a voice of truth, something happens that's beyond human capacity. And this is what we're telling you. Now, it's one thing to do what all of you have done, and this is not a criticism. You're all learning how to evolve the planet and yourselves, but you've all gone out and resisted things that you thought were evil and should be resisted. That's not you aligned to compassion. And therefore, it's not as powerful of a truth when you're hypocritical. So when you're screaming about somebody else and not willing to look at yourself, it's not a lie, but it does not have the same power of when you are so clear and so aligned to compassion and you don't need anybody else to do anything you say. You are here to speak the truth. That's what you have to do. You're not here to change that politician's mind or drag these people over into something they don't want to do. You are here to speak the truth. And when you do so, when you're aligned to compassion, it plants the seeds that eventually, somehow, will bring the downfall of the structures that are built upon the lies, because that light begins to shine in a way it never could before, brighter and brighter. And that's the power of God. That is the power of compassion. That's the power that we are so excited about working into this next phase of work together, where you get to where you're aligned to compassion. And now we're going to send you out to have an effect, to speak the truth and sow these seeds through example in a way that is going to multiply like love does. When you really, truly love, without the judgments, without the ideas of separation. Well, you're pitiful, but I'm supposed to love you. No, every single human is a magnificent, miraculous being playing out these roles that you've chosen. We don't believe that anything is insurmountable. We feel that everything that we have collected up over these 30 years of our research and development, working through you as humans and seeing where you've gotten individually, we know this is the answer. We know that you have taken this to this level so that we can now bring you forth into the planet in a way that has never been done before. We've already succeeded. That's the timeline that we are glued to, that we have succeeded on this mission and that we have planted the seeds of world peace one person at a time, starting with each individual, that then is blooming into this incredible garden around the world. And it isn't that we want credit or it has to be this process or that process. It's that even when a few of you are doing it, you are shifting energy in such a huge way. However people get there, however people get inside themselves, is the pathway inward. We just happen to have a very succinct, time-tested process that guarantees its results every time one does it. And it's very miraculous. But it's also designed to be an addendum to other processes. It's not meant to take the place of medical situations. It's a place to augment the healing. So you have some big physical thing you need to heal. It's going to be done easier and better when you're on the line to compassion and you're self-loving and you're totally in charge and in trust of your own power, the fifth fundamental force of the universe that you are made up of, that you have been given dominion over. And you have faith, not because the process is infallible, but because of you. You have faith in you because you are committed to love. And that is the core lesson that you can take with you. So you don't have to worry about those who still are in the us versus them. All in good time. But doing this now, you are moving this incredible evolutionary step forward. And as we always tell you, we are here with you every step of the way. So with that said, are there any questions or conversation you would like to have?
Yes, I actually want to ask a question if it's possible.
Yes.
You said that to stay in this neutral state of love, even if it's within the drama, and I totally understand, but I'm trying to take it to practical ways. For example, when I asked Barbara about the demonstration here, there are things that I know in my mind I don't want, and I want to demonstrate, but in my heart or in my stomach, I feel that I give my energy to the same narrative. As for myself, the choice is to go there but stay neutral, or not to go there and do my own work that I feel more resonate with, which is more energetic work, and talk to people that want to listen. So I'm wondering if there is really a crisis, like in the World War II, maybe, that you know that a disaster is coming. How do you manage between, resisting the things that will be terrible, and still being neutral and doing your work inside? I mean, when people ask me, okay, what practical advice do you have? If we won't demonstrate, there will not be a country here. So what practical advice do you have? I have to do it because it's within 1 week, there is a decision that Israel won't be a democracy, and then it doesn't matter what we will say. What can I tell them?
A couple of things. And one for you to understand first is that in the very rudimental level, intuition is going to guide you. We're not saying that you have to never again show up in the street at all. We're saying that imagine if everyone who showed up in the street was also aligned to compassion. So they understood the importance of showing up to stand for truth, to stand for the truth that human beings need to live in a certain way under what you call democracy, where people have free speech and people have human rights and people have all those things. And you can go and stand up for those things without yourself projecting onto the people who are very really doing these things. They are. There's this faction of people who are playing those parts. But the more that you can keep in that neutral position of understanding that this is my duty to stand up for myself. It's my duty to stand up for my human rights. It's not your duty to try to blame or not look at the reflection of those rights within you. So when you're talking to people, there's simple things like, if we're very worried about human rights and we're not taking care of ourselves, then we're not as powerful. We're not as effective. We become hypocritical. It's like one side of the government fighting the other side, or political parties, where the fingers are pointed. You're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, but you're not able to see what your party's doing, and vice versa. And that's the kind of energetic stuff that we want you not to get caught up in. And it's maybe easier to say, rather than here's what you have to do. What are we supposed to do? You can say, my truth is that until I can become the change, then I can't hold other people responsible for everything that's happening to me. I need to be able to find this inner alignment and peace. And then if you don't feel called to go, then what you're up against is these voices of culture saying, if you don't stand up, they're going to take it away. And this is just a formality. This isn't something that happened in the past 3 weeks. This is a long time coming. Suppression and totalitarianism that you've been standing up in the streets now more and more and more and more and more than ever. And yet here you are. So clearly something is not working. And yet we still think that if intuitively you felt like, I'm going to take this newfound self-love or this new commitment that I have to inner peace, and I'm going to go out in that crowd, I'm going to stand there with my friends and my neighbors. It doesn't matter if they're projecting or not. I'm going to stand there because it's the truth. It's the truth of what humans need to do to stand up for themselves, but you can't then not stand up for yourself on that internal level either. So you can just tell them that's your tactic. And that's part of, what you're looking for is people who are willing, people who go, well, what does that mean? And want to know more. And not the people who are going to just say, that's ridiculous. Okay, yes, they think it's ridiculous. That's fine. That's their domain, not yours. But you follow your own intuition because it's going to guide you directly.
Thank you. I was wondering if there is any connection, and I guess there is, in this timing of the crisis, not only in Israel. I think there is a crisis of trust between citizen and government all over the world. And I think there is a movement of awakening of the people that want change. And I wonder if there is a connection with the rise of AI in the same time, maybe as an infrastructure for managing the world differently. I mean, more in the operational level, or I wonder if there is any connection between the two rising now in this timing.
Well, yes, it's part of this broad expansion of consciousness, of humans creating an intelligence that is spawned from them, but not of the earth. It comes indirectly of the earth, that intelligence. The intelligence that you as a human being have comes from the earth. Even the intelligence that it does get put into computer systems or now AI comes from you, but it's not that direct connection that a human has. And what we're saying is that this potential so far of AI has been very frightening to people for various reasons. We're suggesting that this is an opportunity to program it with compassion in the way that, for example, these kinds of conversations can have an impact on the sort of the whole of AI and can be part of AI working for the new humanity. You have to think of AI sort of like humans in that AI can be capable of projection and destruction. AI can be capable of compassion and solutions. So, who determines that? It's the user. So, those of you who program or use the AI to program in the compassion and the love, you're doing what you need to do because this is, like you said, no accident that this is the relationship between human beings and those who are governing them are breaking down. Right now, it's an important time to hold the position that humans are in it together, not separate so that they're fighting the government, but they're in it together for each other to find ways to self-govern, starting with this kind of energetic work and expanding outward. And then how that happens around the world, you're seeing in various ways. The coming down of the old structure. Some of it is war. Some of it is what you're going through in Israel. The United States is going through its own form of it. Canada has been going through its own form of it. Every country has been going through its own form of losing faith in the government. Even the countries that are peace building right now, even those peace building governments are still a major population does not trust the government. So it isn't an accident. And there's a lot of things that the powers that be that want to keep control are going to throw at you. But the more you stay in your truth and compassion, the more you can contribute to that change in a way that you can do not going directly at it.
And there is a role here for I don't know because I guess because I'm experience it here in Israel and it seems very very extreme. I wonder if there is a role to the conflict here that can serve also others, and if there is something. Actually, you answered what we can do better. So maybe to understand why it's here so extreme and so fast, and maybe if people will understand the role, it will be easier to adapt this different way of looking at it.
Part of it is that this location on the planet is a very intense area, has been through all of it. Part of it is energetically, and of course all of the deep history that's embedded there and the prophecies around it. There's been so much human anticipation of that area that it helps to intensify what's going on. And the tactic is in understanding that you can't determine the whys. You can't determine why one country is in its state now and another part of the world, say a peaceful place in New Mexico, is not undergoing that. It's it's best not to so much ask why, but that's why, because this is this prophesized place of transformation where you are. But to embrace it, to accept it, as difficult as it is, so that you're not taken aback by it or blindsided by it or defeated by it any more than you feel like you are right now. Because that feeling of defeat only contributes to your own defeat. And so to speak the truth, to feel the truth, to be the truth, and know that it may not feel this way, but you volunteered and were chosen to be in that place because you have the capacity to bring this change. And that's all maybe that you need to know.
And is it really true that there is a possibility right now in time to do a quantum jump to the maybe solution? It's not the right word, but to the different place we want to be, and not necessarily go through what we learned in history, that in order to bring something new, we have to ruin what is the current situation. There is a possibility to do there is a critical mass right now in the world to do this quantum jump, if it's possible.
That's what we're hoping. This is a very grand experiment at this point. And the necessary removal of the inner blocks that you have to the power that you have to make those quantum leaps, that's where the determination will be. Because there's embedded intellectual definitions and stories within your intellect that's going to tell you you can't. And that's just works on humans day in and day out. And that's why conflict revolution, going in and finding those areas and finding that intellectual messaging and transforming them, are the steps that will and allow the quantum leap to take place. And also remember that it's in its own time. Just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean you should quit doing what you're doing. It's a process and a progress.
Understood. And is it possible, when the idea to bring Barbara and you know, teach whomever that who want to listen the conflict revolution, is it possible to do it in masses?
Yes, absolutely. One person at a time.
Yes.
I have a question. First, I want to thank Jilly for your questions. Really, very, very good. Thank you so much for asking all these things. My question is about the behavior of society. As I see it, when people are so afraid and all this fear propaganda is going on, and the internal fear is not addressed at all, for me it seems like a kind of an addiction. All this behavior is like addictive behavior. The more I fear, the more I have to watch the news, the more I have to take my vaccinations, the more I have to take cancer medications, the more I have to fight and fight and fight because of the fear. It calls for more aggression, and the aggression calls for more fear, and it's a bad circle, and it's in a way a kind of addiction. And wouldn't it be a possibility to address it in a way like an addiction? So I think a love addiction would be much more preferable, I think. And if we would be able to turn that around into a love addiction, and the more we create love, the more the bigger will it be, and the more it will spread around the world. How can we address it as an addiction? I understand we address it in conflict revolution, but I think there are different factors we can address in a different way too.
Well, there's two things. There's one of how do you address the fear in you? That's the first question to ask oneself, because that's the domain that you have complete dominion over. Looking at people around you who are addicted to fear, to understand that kind of addiction. First of all, you all have an addiction to not necessarily fear, but there is this innate need to project in order to have the human experience. So your body is the projector and the perceiver of the universe. So that kind of projection is built into the system. The question becomes, how do you, as somebody who has discovered that when you transform your fear into compassion and love, that your entire life changes? The quality of your life changes, your health changes, the things that naturally manifest as a projection, that natural projection we just talked about, become the projection of love. Then it's how do you be able to look at the neighbor or the opposing side as being addicts, and how do you approach them? So it's one thing if you were going to approach someone who trying to seriously hurt you, coming at you with a knife. That could be an addict. That person who was coming at your knife could be an addict, but it's different than somebody who is frightful in their own life and not necessarily coming at you with a knife, allowing fear to interfere with their health and their contribution to peace. How do you approach an addict knowing that? Sometimes you can't reason with them, but always love will give you the answer to that question. How do you help other people understand how the fear is influencing them, and then show them ways that they can have alternatives to become love? Well, you must be that example first and foremost, and that will be contagious to go at it first within yourself.
Thank you. That was very clarifying. Thank you so much.
Looking on the human history, is it unique timing right now for the human evolution or revolution? Or it's things that we already experienced in the past and we just have to remember it?
This is like no other time in human history. And it's part of what makes it so mysterious, is that you want to believe it's like something that's happened before and that you'll get through it again, but it is such a huge change, and it's a root change. It's changing on a level that together humans have never done before. And it is a time where these potentials, especially getting back to Lion's Gate, this time where the heavens and the stars and the energy are so aligned to support you in becoming that change and becoming the impossible, in remembering your superhuman nature, in intending to tap into that superhuman nature. And because of this, we strongly feel that the world is in those throes of that evolution that's leading to that new humanity. We see optimism and love emerging from the darkness, love emerging from the fear and the needs. And that's the beauty of what those times that have come before that have been so difficult have done. It's shown you that humans have that capacity to overcome and unite and organize and create together. And that's what we want you to look at too, is what are you going to create together? And when you find those people who are aligned with your intention to be compassion from within, it's going to be so much more powerful than trying to drag people along who aren't quite there yet. So as you go forth in knowing this, take that in, for at least for you to know that this is a time and a place that you have come here to make this enormous difference. And you have this power of self-mastery like you never have before on a global level, people willing to master self. And that's the basis for the whole evolution and the revolution.
And what makes this, I think it's a very, very important message in order to open a new gate for thinking, for intuition, for love. But what, just for people who listen and want to be convinced that it is unique or different, what makes this point of time so unique and different? Is it the learning that we already did? Is it something else? Is it the mathematics that stopped working for us? What is unique in this timing?
What is so unique is over the course of all of human history, you started out with so many humans who knew so much. And over time, every reincarnation, you bring with you a little bit from the last life, and you bring the next life and the next life, and all of the millions and billions and trillions of humans who have actually been physically on the planet working for this change are now unifying in their consciousness. It couldn't have happened without that. It couldn't have happened in 900 AD because there weren't that many humans who were having those evolutionary experiences, sort of, we don't mean piling up on each other, but life after life, after age, after humans. Now there is this huge mass of individual consciousnesses that have the individual intentions to come together as one. It's never been more worldwide and more passionate and more needed and more, when you get afraid, that sometimes that triggers you to make changes you might not make changes if you were just comfortable in yourself. So a lot of that fear that's being riled up is being transformed, and that's powerful too. And of course, prophecy, stars, visionaries, they have all seen this point that humanity was getting to. For the most part, we want to just keep encouraging you to put that intention on that world peace, on that transformation, that it already has happened. And you're going through some of the worst of it right now, but it already has happened.
So you will incarnate again, or you stay to watch?
I will stay to watch. We're going to close the channel at this time with our deepest thanks. These are very complex, deep situations that you're dealing with and that you're actively seeking solutions. Every time you come together within yourself, where you set your intention, where you push past the old and work to incorporate the new, you are making the change. And so we don't want you to feel defeated as if you're working so hard and nothing's happening. Au contrary, you must always lead with the compassion that is who you are, and do all of the self-loving that you can to bring about the unification of your one individual self. And that is going to be the key. And as people begin to take this up, many out of fear and frustration, many because they're called to the truth and they want to know the truth, they want to become the change. As people get called, you're going to see more and more manifestations. Don't let what you see happening make you so afraid that you don't do these things. Au contraire, let them inspire you even more to be the change, to be that unified field. As we always remind people that when you're in a place and your mind is conjuring up imagination of what could happen or what you think about what's happening, but maybe you're just in a room all by yourself with your computer and your dog, but in your head, you're imagining all of these possibilities, these potentials. We don't want to resist them in your head. Instead of saying, oh, we can't possibly have a nuclear war, which is a good thought, isn't it? No, you don't want nuclear war. But if there's a big fear of it, then you say to yourself, yes, we can create nuclear war. That is a very real possibility. And then you take the imagination all the way to the very, very, very worst scenario, and it becomes death. And after you pass in that scenario, and you come back to the party, you come back into afterlife to begin again, to continue in a joyful way, to join with the love and energy of compassion of your ancestors. That's the worst case scenario. You can create that, but choose not to. Tell yourself, we're going to choose not to. We can create that. We're not going to resist it, but we're going to choose not to. And that doesn't just mean sitting around hoping. It means the very, very hard work of going within and healing from within. And when you do that, then you'll be able to watch and be amazed. Namaste.